Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol special series on women achievers. I'm Mahalakshmi and I have with me someone who's an extraordinary role model in every sense of the term. She started off on the front foot with an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, was a high-flying investment banker, and then decided to give wings to her long-cherished dream of being an entrepreneur when she was close to 50. And no surprises on how that venture went. In less than 10 years, her company is synonymous with beauty in India and commands a market cap of over 60,000 crores, half of which her family and she owns. I'm so delighted to have on this show Falguni Nayar, CEO and founder of Nykaa, along with her mother Rashmi Mehta and daughter Adveta Nayar. Thank you all three of you for joining me on this show.
No, thank you very much, Mahalakshmi. Really a pleasure to be here.
Falguni, for me, what stands out about you is not the fact that you are a high achiever in terms of career or the fact that you made so much wealth. What stands out for me is the way in which you really designed your life. You did everything on your own terms, at your own pace. And the centerpiece of this is really a family-first approach. Was this always very clear to you?
No, of course. I think I always feel that one has to commit oneself to professional career or even studies when you're studying. But at the same time, it has to be in the context of keeping an eye on your family, because finally, what is all that worth if you don't have your family by your side or you are not focused? And not just focused, but you're also not enjoying your time with your family. So I think for me, family time and enjoying that family time has always been central to what I do.
Sure, I totally identify with that. Now, let me just take you back to your childhood. What was a young Falguni really like? What were her aspirations or ambition, or even the challenges that you faced at that time? Can you just take us through that phase of your life?
So to be honest and to admit, I mean, it's not like admitting, but I was a very carefree child. I mean, I was a very carefree person. But I was very inquisitive. I was very curious. I really wanted to travel. It began with doing a lot of traveling within the country and wanting to experience various things. Like I went on a student exchange program to Kashmir those days and stayed with a Kashmiri family in their home for a week, and I really enjoyed that. So I was very keen to really travel, have different experiences, and kind of carefree about my studies. I think in some ways doing well in school came easily to me, so I kind of took it for granted. But I wasn't very aware of any potential. I wasn't chasing a goal at that stage for sure.
Sure. Let me go over to your mother. Ma'am, आप कुछ बताएं फाल्गुनी के बचपन के बारे में. मतलब किस तरह की बच्ची थी? बहुत पढ़ाकू थी कि बहुत बिंदास थी? कोई भी कहानी उस समय की?
ऐसे मेरे को ऐसा लगता था कि उसमें पोटेंशियल इतनी बहुत है, मगर मैंने देखा है कि वो अपने आप ही खुद ही बहुत अच्छा कर रही थी. मगर मेरा ऐसा स्वभाव था कि मैं हमेशा उसको बोलती थी कि जो भी उसने अचीव किया है वो परफेक्ट नहीं है, इसलिए उससे भी ज़्यादा मेरे को चाहिए. और वो हर समय चाहती थी कि भाई चलो मम्मी पापा खुश रहे, वो जो भी मांगते करे. इसलिए वो ज़्यादा हार्ड वर्कर हो गई. और अपना एम, मैंने हर हमेशा बच्चों को बोला है कि अपना एम हमेशा ऊपर रखो, तो वो लेने के लिए भी तुमको ऊपर जाना पड़ेगा. और उसने वो करके दिखाया है. बाकी वो पहले से तो बहुत ही इंटेलिजेंट थी, वो दिख ही रहा था. और हर एक चीज़ में वो जो करना चाहती है वो करती ही थी. वो उसकी मेन एबिलिटी थी.
So Falguni, was that really the main driver, the fact that you have to always push yourself and go beyond what you have already achieved?
No, there were no such goals or anything. But yes, I think mom was always, like she said, she was always the type where I had to come and explain. If I got 99, I had to explain why did I lose that one mark instead of, kind of celebrating 99 that I got. So I think there was always that feeling that, yes, I know you can do better. And I think maybe, I don't know whether that was a motivator, but clearly, that's what I remember. And then slowly I started enjoying studies. I mean, it wasn't that it was a chore. I used to be very, I used to just kind of enjoy studying and attending college and learning, like I told you, I was very inquisitive. So for me, it was not waste of time. For me, it was a journey and I really enjoyed all of it. And that's how I always felt. Like when I went to IIM, I felt I learned a lot and I really cherish that. And even when Adveta went to Harvard Business School and I went to attend some classes with her, I do remember telling her that how lucky she is that she's getting a chance to learn this. So for me, education was not a chore. It was really something I cherished and I learned a lot and I wish I could do more. That's how I looked at it.
Any episodes from that time that really left an indelible mark on you? Anything that picked up from that time which really shaped your decision making later in life or made you the kind of person that you became later in life?
No, I think there were many. I think if I may say it, it was in my upbringing where I think a couple of things, my dad would always expect me to praise something when I went to someone's home. I think that made me more outgoing and being able to say something. Otherwise, you're so shy. And I think it was always expected of me that I say something. And so I think many small things like that. And for mom and dad both, it was very black and white world. Like there was no gray and one had to be very truthful. And I think being very truthful and valuing truth is, it became part of life thanks to that. And a huge influence of Gita on my life, which I think came even before I met Sanjay, but also when I met him. I think for him, karm kar or phal ki ichha mat rakh, and working because you enjoy working rather than as a means to some ultimate rewards. And I think that has been a big family philosophy always, yeah.
मैम, आप कोई कहानी याद कर सकती हैं छोटी मोटी उस समय की?
छोटी मोटी करके तो ऐसा है जैसे फाल्गुनी ने बताया, वो पहले बहुत ही शाई थी या इसके लिए आजू बाजू के लोगों को ऐसा लगता था कि ये तो कुछ कर ही नहीं सकेगी। जैसे मैं आपको एक इंसिडेंट बताऊं, IIM के जो एंट्रेंस फी के जो फॉर्म देने के थे तो उसके टीचर ने उसको नहीं दिया। मैंने उनको पूछा क्यों नहीं दिया, तो बोलते मुझे नहीं लगता है उसको IIM में एडमिशन मिलेगा। मैंने बोला हाउ कैन यू से दैट, यू हैव टू गिव यू हर। और कैसे भी करके फॉर्म लेके हम लोगों ने सबमिट भी किया और फिर बाद में उसको ही पछतावा हो गया कि मैंने ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया लड़की के लिए कि इसको IIM में एडमिशन मिलेगा ही नहीं। ये तो मेरे को बहुत ही याद रहा है।
तो आप गए थे टीचर को कन्विंस करने के लिए कि फॉर्म दिया जाए?
हाँ, मुझे जाना पड़ा क्योंकि मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि फॉर्म इश्यू हो गए और वो लेके नहीं आई। तो उसने तो खुद मांगा ही नहीं क्योंकि वो तो बहुत ही शाई थी। तो मुझे जाके बोलना पड़ा कि भाई आपने क्यों फॉर्म नहीं दिया, मुझे कैसे भी करके मेरे को फॉर्म चाहिए ही चाहिए। मगर बाद में मैंने देखा है कि IIM में जाने के बाद फिर वो अपने आप ही अपना सुख करने लगी है। मेरे को उसको IIM तक ही मदद करनी पड़ी है क्योंकि वो खुद इंटेलिजेंट तो थी मगर थोड़ी इनवर्ड थी, आउटवर्ड बाद में हो गई है उधर जाने के बाद। तो फिर बाद में उसको मेरी ज़रूरत ही नहीं पड़ी, अपने आप वो आगे आई है।
Adveta, do you have any stories that you've heard from your Nani ji or anybody else in the family about your mom's childhood?
I think what I've heard anecdotally both from Nani and Mom herself is really this free-spirited soul. And I see traces of that in her even today, but lots of stories of her traveling the world, going on hikes, always being given, she was given a very modern upbringing, always allowed to dream and kind of live life on her terms. So those are the stories I've heard. And I definitely think that perpetuates even into the person she is today. I always think the quality I love most about her is that she loves life and she wants you to love your life and live every minute to the fullest. Some of her favorite phrases are, you have your one life, you have to live it on your terms. And so this free-spirited, loving and living life to the fullest is really what I love and admire about her.
Falguni, you met Sanjay at IIM and then decided to get married. Around that time, did you guys have any conversation around how the two of you will go about straddling family responsibilities and career? Because obviously it was very obvious, it would have been obvious at that time that both of you would have a very bright career ahead. Or was it just unspoken and understood that we will cross a bridge when we get there?
No, even though it was not spelled out like that, what I can say is that, you see, we were 9 girls in a class of 150 girls. Right. So these 9 girls who have made it there are definitely very different thinkers in those times, And I think the men who fell in love with them knew that these are not women who can be controlled by saying, "Hamare ghar mein to aise hi hota hai." So I don't think there were any of those conversations. And I think what I respect about Sanjay is that through my career, I have seen it, that he always would come in as a professional and trying to understand my commitment to work or my need to give more time to work versus taking it away from family as something that he would do as a professional. If he would do it as a professional, I don't think he would say, oh, you can't do it because, you know, our kids are at home, or, you know, we don't have a nanny. I don't think those were the conversations that ever happened. Right. I think being married to Sanjay, the best part of it has been that, yes, he had his own ambition and his own career aspirations, and that's what he followed. And if I had mine, I was given a freedom to do that. And I used to always, I say these words like freedom to do that, but now new generation women will say, what do you mean? Right. Like, you know, it's not like it's his freedom to give. Yeah. So, but in many ways, I was totally, you know, free to do as I please from my career perspective. And if I did commit to my kids and I did spend enough time with them, but I don't think anyone was insisting. Like, if I didn't go to a parent-teacher meeting, it would be my call rather than Sanjay saying, oh, no, one of us has to go to a parent-teacher meeting.
Ma'am, आपको कभी चिंता हुई कि फाल्गुनी और संजय दोनों की बढ़िया करियर होगी तो ये लोग किस तरह से कोप करेंगे, फाल्गुनी कैसे कोप करेगी, और आपकी तरफ से क्या एडवाइस रहा इनको?
नहीं, कभी भी, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम था कि फाल्गुनी अपने फैमिली को संभाल के ही अपना करियर बनाएगी, और मुझे उस पर विश्वास ही था। इसलिए कभी मैंने इस बारे में उसको कभी भी मैंने कोई भी सलाह दी नहीं है। हाँ, कभी कभी ये होता था कि वो जब भी काम के लिए बाहर जाती थी तो एक्चुअली मदर को थोड़ा अंदर गिल्टी महसूस होता है, तो बच्चों को प्रॉमिस कर देती है। मैं बोलती थी तुम प्रॉमिस मत करो, अगर तेरे पास टाइम है तो तेरे को बच्चों के लिए कुछ भी करना है कर लो, मगर अगर प्रॉमिस करके तुम जाओगी और तुम नहीं कर सकोगी तेरी बिजी लाइफ के अंदर, तो फिर बच्चे नाराज़ हो जाएंगे। और एक इंसिडेंस ऐसा हुआ भी था, तो उसको जाने था, एक ही दिन का उसका वो प्रोग्राम था, फिर भी जाते जाते अंचित को बोलती है, अंचित मैं तेरे लिए क्या लेके आ जाऊँ? मम्मी मेरे लिए कार लेके आ जाओ। अभी आई तब टाइम ही नहीं था, उसको एक दिन का प्रोजेक्ट था, तो वापस आ गई लिए बिना। अंचित बोलता है अभी मैं स्कूल जाऊंगा ही नहीं, मम्मी मेरे लिए कार लाई ही नहीं। उस समय मेरे को जाना पड़ता था बच्चों को संभालने के लिए, और बच्चे संभल भी जाते थे क्योंकि बच्चों को नानी पर विश्वास था कि अगर नानी ने प्रॉमिस किया है तो नानी जरूर वो करेगी। इसलिए मैं चाहती हूँ कि जो भी प्रोफेशनल माँ मदर है ने, उसको कभी भी बच्चों को कोई प्रॉमिस नहीं करना, उसके बदले उनको सरप्राइज दो, वो ज़्यादा अच्छा है।
Adveta, do you recall any of those negotiations from that time? I mean, did you also extract your pound of flesh?
No, honestly, I don't remember any such negotiations, but I think I was always the easier child. But yeah, I think it was definitely, I'm sure we gave her a tough time. I definitely remember when I was 6 or 7, I used to call her on the phone every hour, just asking her, are you coming home? Are you coming home? Are you coming home? So that must have been annoying. But, you know, I do feel that it's tough for kids to have working moms in the early years, but there's definitely a turning point, like perhaps when I was 12 or 13, when, you know, you start obviously developing your own mind and thoughts and ambitions. And after that point, I think having a working mom is the best thing that you could ever have, because it just sets the right ambition for your own life. It sets, you know, it gives you a whole lot of values and discipline and thought process that is incredible coming from within the home. So I think in the grand scheme of things, having a working mom is fantastic, but I definitely have memories of being a little tough on her when I was a little girl.
So you were a guilty mother.
Yeah, of course. I think till certain age, you are always a guilty mom, because as my mom says that, I remember an incident which mom doesn't remember, but like I sent Adveta to a summer camp, and expectation was that when she comes back in 3 days, I will go to pick her up. But in the meantime, I was asked to travel to the West Coast, and I sent a friend, and I can feel the disappointment she must have felt when instead of a mom, an aunt has come to pick her up. And I had to lean a lot on friends, and they used to really help me. But typically, you know, after school in the US, we were in the US, and after school, my friends would pick them up and take them to their homes so that they had some company and stuff, you know, because school finishes at 3 and I would be working till 5 or 6, you know. So these were the tough 3-4 hours when if they didn't have an activity at that point to keep them busy, you know. And my friends also used to joke that, you know, she really, really wants you to come. Why can't you come? And, you know, if you're a working mother, but others are, your friends are, they have your best interest in mind, but if you're not working, if they are not working, they can't understand what is it so important that she's not yet coming back when her child wants it so much. So I think these were all difficult years. And yes, I was a guilty mother, but I think when kids start appreciating, like Anshita and Adveta, as they started appreciating the fact that I worked and it means something to them now, that's when that guilt goes away. And of course, eventually when they go to the right schools and colleges, because when you're young, like, I don't think I could get my act together to book them tennis courts, because especially in a country like India where everything is in short supply. So there is this mother waiting to book the court as soon as it's open. So I find that as a working mother, you miss out on a lot because you just can't get your act together to do everything.
So how do you really suggest that young mothers who are going through this phase now cope with this? I know you've said this in the past that women need to get past their guilt and fear, but obviously it's much easier said than done. Can you really do anything about it, or do you have to just wait for things to settle down and hope that they settle down? Or can you really do anything about it?
No, they have to believe that it won't be so bad. I mean, of course, because I was a working mother, my kids were very shy also. So the nurseries that would judge them on confidence, and in the interview, I mean, you're interviewing 3 and 4-year-olds. And if they have a working mother, mostly they're clinging to someone because they just are not, because they've always seen her leave the house. It's not easy. So I think then you feel that they're not getting into the right nursery. So some of my friends actually, when Anshita and Adveta got into best colleges like Yale and Columbia, and my friend who gave up all her career, and she was an engineer, she gave up her career and did everything for kids at home, and her kids got into the same colleges. So she jokes about it that, hey, you didn't spend any time on your kids and finally the outcomes were the same. So I think, you just have to have a belief that, see, I used to those days justify by saying that, look, a child also inherits a parent. So in many ways now, Adveta got a package. Like, she got a mom who was, certain mindset, and she was a certain emotion and she gave in a certain way. I think I was very hands-on. I used to read to the kids. I used to clean up their toys. My maid would be strict and say, oh, please clean up your own toys. And I'd come back from work and clean up the toys, So
that's also a sign of a guilty mother.
Of course. So I think, so it's a package. And I think finally you just have to keep your fingers crossed and believe that it'll all work out.
Adveta, do you think your generation, women of your generation are also equally guilty and fearful?
I think that I imagine that some amount of that guilt continues to exist, because even when I do look around at my friends who are working moms or just starting to be working moms, I think a large part of being a mother still, having children still disproportionately falls on a woman, and that's some amount is societal and some amount is just physiological. So I think that it is tough for women to kind of juggle it and do it all, but I think there is a way to, if it's important part of your personality and you want to have a career, there's a way to figure it out. But I have to say that when I look around at my friends and I watch them handle it, it is very difficult, and there's no mincing words. And I don't think that things have, transformed or improved so much between one generation to the next. I think that sense of guilt remains.
Sure. Falguni, when you look at your entire journey, when you got out of IIM Ahmedabad, you got a placement with City as well, and so did Sanjay. But you chose to give up City and take up Ferguson. And then during the career, he decided to go to UK, you moved with him. He moved to US, you moved with him. Nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful because you found workarounds to ensure that the family's interest was taken care of. But do you ever feel, I'm asking this question because that is how our larger social setup really is, that as a woman, you are expected to make that first adjustment, whether you call it an adjustment or a compromise or sacrifice or whatever it is, you are expected to do that first and then wait for some sort of a reciprocity to happen. Did you ever feel that way?
No, so I have to just correct that I took consulting because I didn't want to be in the same industry. Like, he was in banking, I wanted to do non-banking, and I chose consulting. But eventually I went to banking because, all careers were leading to finance. And after many years in consulting, 7 years in consulting, I also moved to finance. And in fact, we did competing jobs, and he and I would pitch for the same investment banking deals. And I think the whole market knew, and we knew that we could keep, we wouldn't share our, Chinese, there was a Chinese wall, and we would keep it and not share our, our organizational information with each other. And that respect was there. And you increasingly see that. You find husband, wife working in competing political camps on the same election. I think there are enough examples of all this in the world. So I think the world has moved on to understand that women's career is equally important. I just used to say that, look, I'm not in a race with my husband. I think if you make it about the race, that does he have a better job? Do I have a better job? Is he making more money? Am I making more money? It's not about that, because finally we are both working towards our common family goals, And then same thing also about, I also felt that when you are working and you're not getting appropriate rewards, suppose you're not in the best paid job, I feel the need to invest in yourself, need to learn more, need to lean in, need to take senior responsibility and continue to grow as a person is more important, and it should be seen not in light of, oh, I'm doing all this, but the company is not looking after me. I think according to me, I'm doing all this to make myself a better version of myself tomorrow, and eventual rewards will come. So if you change your philosophy to all this, be it for woman or a man, it's very applicable. And I think people made examples of women taking a back seat, but there are enough in many marriages, women's career goes at a different pace than a man's, and no one's talking about it. But it's not about, you're a family unit. It's not about one versus the other at all in my mind. Even at work, it is not about one versus the other. I think gone are those times where which colleague did well, am I doing the best? I think everything is becoming more about teams, and you succeed as a team, as a family also, you succeed as a family unit rather than being in competition with each other.
Falguni, you worked in the US and UK, and the work culture out there is that you stick to office timings. In the evening, your family time is your family time. You don't get drawn into work over weekends and so on. Obviously, you've worked in India also, and things changed dramatically for you when you became an entrepreneur. You would come home at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the initial years and all of that. Now, my question is, how do you yourself think about, how do you think about work-life balance for yourself? And how do you think about well-being and work-life balance for Nykaa as an organization?
Yeah, of course, for the organization, yes. See, personally, I feel women should juggle rather than try to achieve work-life balance every day. So what I mean by that is that in one day you could be 2 days a week, 3 days a week, you could work till 9 p.m., 3 a.m., whatever it takes. But another couple of days, if you have children at home, you must go early so that you can take them to the park. You can give them a different experience that day. So instead of being very rigid about, even to say that, no, every day I work till 9 p.m., I don't think that's a happy situation. So I have achieved balance through juggling, where there are times where I take it totally off, and especially when I'm on holiday and all, I try to be totally off and I won't even look at my phone. But I go with a warning saying, look, I won't be looking at my phone, so don't depend on me too much. But I think I think it comes through juggling. There's no other way to do work-life balance, according to me, in today's world, which is such a fast-paced world. As far as I think main thing what women want is, and I also used to be like that, they want respect. It's not that they don't want to commit to work, but when asked, like I think there was a time when my kids were less than 6 months old and I used to not be able to reach work at 10:30 also. I think at that time, if any of my bosses had told me, why are you late, I would have quit. So the respect that they gave me, and that no, she's there, she's dealing with something, it'll be behind her and she'll be there, fully there. And the quality of her work is good, the quality of her thinking is good, quality of her commitment is good. So if you were to respect that, then actually how many years women spend on having kids or bringing up kids? It's very few years. Right. And by actually committing to her needs at that point, where giving her a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of ability to juggle, you actually win her loyalty for all your life, for the organization, or even, so I feel that organizations should keep attention on that special need of the woman at that stage. And if they are supportive to her at that stage, they understand her needs, then I think long-term commitment from the same women is amazing, But I think work must matter to you. I think that's what most companies want to see, that work is important to you.
Adveta, are you on the same page with respect to work-life balance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, one thing that's really struck through the whole Nykaa experience is that these careers and building these companies is a very long journey. And it's been about 9 years since we started looking at Nykaa and, where we are today. But there's just so much more to be done that I think if you get burnt out within the first couple of years, then, you just don't have the energy to see it through to the end. So I think it's something that I personally worked on a lot, that it's in the long-term interest of both myself and my role and my teams that, I bring a very balanced orientation. And for me, that requires a work-life balance. And so how I strike it, I think it differs for everyone to everyone. Everyone has different thresholds. But I'm quite clear, what I need to remain sort of balanced. And I prioritize it because I think it's quite important for the longevity of my contribution.
So Falguni, you're right. Companies really do have to make accommodations for women during their special circumstances. I totally agree. But as Nykaa as an organization and even India as a country, how far do you think are we from embracing the Western culture of ensuring that work hours are limited and you don't get drawn into work during your family time or over weekends? Many companies argue, although they say they care for well-being, they argue privately that we are a developing nation, we really can't afford this, and these are pressures you have to cope with. What are your thoughts on this?
I think we at Nykaa follow these without really any clear rules. I mean, what it means is that, internally within our family, it's like that. It's like on a Friday evening, if I ask Adveta that, hey, why is this number so bad? How is it going to help? It will just spoil her weekend. So I think we as a family also set boundaries to that, and same thing with the team. Like if I can ask the same question to that person on a Monday morning, why would I try to ask on the weekend? And even if I want to just deal with my mail and get done, I should not be expecting an answer on the weekend, especially if nothing can be done. But yes, if we have certain inefficiency in our marketing program and it needs to be altered over the weekend, we do expect that people should do it. So I think what it means is that you should not trouble someone for sake of troubling them. Right. And if it is important, then they know the commitment and then they will help. So we have these SOS groups and all where we put things which are very important and then everyone gives an attention. So I think we have found our ways of dealing with emergency situations rather than, and then for the ones which are not non-emergency situation, you don't need to ask people to prove themselves by making them work when they don't need to work. So I think a lot of things, and I learned that from Adveta also, like if you make a comment only because for a cause, or if you can change something or change the way of doing something, same way if you ask someone to do something because it matters at that point in time. So I think once you follow those principles and you're not doing something to make life difficult for someone, I think so culturally Nykaa is in a good place that way. We do commit a lot, but we also understand, and we don't, when we have the free time, we have the free time, and when everybody needs to rally around something, we do.
Ma'am, you're obviously very proud of Falguni. आप हमें बताएं कि in all these years, what is it that has really changed about Falguni as a person, or are there any things where she is not changed? कहाँ पे उनमें बदलाव आई है ऐसे as a person, और कहाँ पे मतलब कुछ भी नहीं change हुआ है?
नहीं, as a person जो जैसी है वैसी ही है, क्योंकि वो फैमिली ओरिएंट है, मगर बिजनेस के बाबत में वो काफ़ी चेंज हो गई है. अपने निर्णय खुद लेती है और फिर उसको बराबर चुस्त तरह से पकड़ के बराबर उसी लाइन पर चलती रहती है वो. यानी जो भी उसको कमिट जो उसको जो करना है वो करती है, वो उसमें चेंजेस आ गए हैं. बाकी फैमिली के लिए तो उसकी जो पहले भी जो भावना थी वही सेम टू सेम है. फैमिली को वो सबसे पहले फर्स्ट देती है नंबर, मगर साथ में कैरियर को भी इतना ही देखती है. तो आई एम वेरी सेटिस्फाइड विथ हर एंड आई एम वेरी प्राउड ऑफ हर ऑल्सो कि उसने अपनी दोनों प्रोफेशनल लाइफ और फैमिली लाइफ को एक समझ के ही रखा है उसने बराबर. नहीं तो कभी कभी आदमी क्या है कि प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में इतने इन्वॉल्व हो जाते हैं कि फिर फैमिली को देख ही नहीं सकते हैं। अगर उसके बदले फाल्गुनी ने दोनों को बराबर रखा है, वो मेरे को अच्छा लग रहा है। और मैं चाहती भी ऐसा ही थी कि भाई मेरी बेटी ऐसी ही रहे कि कल के कोई ऐसा नहीं बोले कि भाई चलो आज वो इतनी बड़ी हो गई तो उसमें इतना गर्व आ गया है। वो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है उसके लिए। वो डाउन टू अर्थ है, वो मेरे लिए काफ़ी है उसके लिए।
So Falguni, what have been your biggest learnings from your mother?
No, the same thing. What she says, that determination to do what you want to do. I think she's been like that also, and I definitely have picked it up from her. I think some of my cousins tell me that I have taken a bit of both my parents. You know, my dad used to want to enjoy life, and even mom is like that. I think we don't want historical beliefs and anything to hold us up, you know. Like, I think parents have always been very supportive. Like, I think they must have also been scared. Like, I think you understand your parents better when you become a parent. Like, sending your child to a student exchange program to Kashmir in those days, I think it was pre 1980, you know. I think between 78 and 80. Those days, it was not such a done thing. Most parents would have said, Arey, what are you doing, sending your girl alone somewhere? So I think, but you know, experiences come from that, and all of that mom and dad taught me, and I have made the same choices for my children. I have allowed them experiences where I think Adveta went on her student exchange program, not student exchange, but she went on certain programs to countries like Dominican Republic and others, where I, instead of being scared, I said, okay, let her have new experiences. So I think what I learned from my parents, I probably have become a parent like that. And I think I really value that, because today how I'm different is coming from that upbringing where there was no limits. Like, it wasn't that, oh, you can't do, you shouldn't do, there was nothing like you should be scared to do this. There was nothing like, what if something happens? You know, it was like, yeah, be careful, but yes, do enjoy the experience, you know. And I think, I don't know, Adveta can endorse that, but I think I have tried to do the same with Anchit and Adveta.
Adveta, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really defining feature, and it goes back to one of my first answers about like mum's love for life, and she's really instilled that in us. And I think she's always, all my memories through school and college days is I'd call her up to ask for some permission or the other, and she'd always be like, no questions asked, whether it was, you know, this exchange program in the Dominican Republic, whether it was going skydiving, whether it was an exchange program in Paris. It was always like yes, yes, and yes. And even now, you know, when there's so much work, always, if there's any opportunity for me to travel, to go to a friend's wedding, it's always like you have to do it. You get these experiences only once, and you just have to live life to the fullest. So definitely taken that away from home.
Sure. I'll just take a moment to thank Rashmi ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation.
मैं एक बात बोलना चाहती हूँ।
हाँ जी।
मेरी एक बहुत एम्बिशन थी कि मैं हार्वर्ड में जाऊँ, मगर मुझे तो चांस मिला ही नहीं। फिर बाद में फाल्गुनी के लिए भी मन हुआ, अगर उसको IIM मिला तो मैंने समझ लिया कि चलो हार्वर्ड का ये एफिशिएट है तो अच्छा है। मगर आई एम वेरी प्राउड कि माय एम्बिशन फुलफिल बाय अद्वैता। This I am very proud of her. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rashmi ma'am. It was wonderful having you with us. Thank you so much. Falguni, every time a woman is elevated to a top position or there is a huge entrepreneurial success, we tend to celebrate it as not just that person's success, but as a success for the women community as a whole. Now, my question to you is, do you identify yourself as a woman entrepreneur? And the second thing is, for a lot of women who don't come from a privileged background where the family is really supportive, because that also depends on the social strata or where they belong, how do you really make this happen for them?
So very interesting. I think I prefer to be recognized as an entrepreneur rather than as a woman entrepreneur. Right. And then however far I go, obviously, you know, that's fine. I think I'm not ashamed to be a woman, and I'm really proud to be a woman, and I also I enjoy being a woman. So it's not a handicap to me, and in many ways, you know, I think in most professions, I think today women are at par with men, you know. So I think this whole women entrepreneur tag or women, women professional or all those lists I really don't like. But yes, I think they have a role to play. I think I used to say that there's no glass ceiling, and I mean, even this work-life balance question, I used to not really like it. But you know, when I think about it, I think through my career, through mid-career, and through at various levels, when I've spoken about it and I've given examples of it, I think women have really appreciated, and I think they may, you know, they want to understand, like they want to give examples of how other women have handled these situations, and they learn from that. And I think to that extent, I'm happy to share it. But in my mind, I think the success comes from being a truly good professional or a big, truly good entrepreneur, and it's on par with really men or women. It's not really a compartmentalized approach that I think it should be there. So I don't know, and Adveta is also a believer in a similar approach, I'm sure.
Right.
In fact, I mean, every generation benefits. I always say that I'm where I am because my dad treated me as equal and never instilled in me that I'm a woman and I can't do this. It was never a case that, oh, now you're married, you should not travel so much. I used to travel in early career 20 days in a month. I used to go to small towns. No one told me, oh, it may not be safe, be careful. Right. I used to constantly just little bit, you know, pray and go to those unknown places where I was not sure about my safety, but I was brave and I was courageous and I did that. And I think women need to be brought up with that kind of courage and belief in themselves, and I think they can really do pretty much everything that men can do.
Absolutely, I agree. And the second part of the question, for those who do not have the benefit of that ecosystem, which is a lot of India, can organizations really make a difference at all, or do you believe this is a battle that has to be fought at the family level?
No, I've said many times that this has to be first addressed in the family rather than in the organization. In the family, like when I could not attend a lunch because, I mean, I clearly set boundaries that if there is a social lunch at my house or even my friends are meeting socially for lunch and I can't join it, and I can't join it. So it's not about, you should be committed to work and you should be able to say no to other social commitment. Like, of course, if you're really needed for a family emergency, you're of course going to leave work and go, and men are going to leave work and go, and so will women. But it's not that women are this backup where if the maid is not there, she takes leave. I think women have to make sure that they are not treated like that, and I think their families have to accept that and not give them a hard time for that. I think once that understanding comes in the family, and behind every successful woman is a very supportive family who understands her need to be at work or need to commit to career. Yeah.
Going back into personal stuff a bit, you worked with Adveta for quite some time now. What have been your biggest learnings from Adveta?
I think each person brings their strengths. So I think Adveta is extremely well read, and she has a very deep philosophy on many subjects in life, and she has she's very good at sharing a very precise advice to you, which also comes not as, oh, I'm telling you so, but through a little, like I remember she gave me a poem called Ithaka, which is an amazing poem, and I would urge all of you to read that. But when I was embarking on the Nykaa journey, and the big question in my mind is that how far will this journey go? Am I doing the right thing? Am I giving up something very valuable? And she gave me this poem which said that, look, this is a journey and it's not about the destination. And whether the destination is like, a small town in Africa or it's New York, the journey will be equally good. So forget the prize, but, value the journey and every moment of the journey. And so I think she has this very great philosophical view of life, many aspects of life, and she shares it. So I think she's the true, wisdom in our family, if I may say so. I also feel that she focuses a lot on values, she focuses a lot on culture, and I think, and for her it begins with walking the talk. And if like basically I remember those days we used to work on Saturday. In investment banking we didn't work Saturdays, and then as a retailer when we started working Saturdays, I used to be tempted to go home for lunch because, I'd be like now, but she's like, no, we work till 3 o'clock. We need to be in office. So I think she has really been very instrumental in setting the culture and values at Nykaa. And also within that is a millennial, I think there's a lot to learn from millennials in terms of what their value systems are, how they're transparent. For them, they don't care what society thinks. They're very transparent about their lives. And not just Adveta, but all my children, now I say I have 4. So I think all 4 of them are very amazing individuals. And there's a lot to learn from them in terms of how they conduct their lives. So I'm just very blessed to be able to learn from them. I mean, you learn from every generation, and I think you imbibe it into your culture, yeah.
Sure. Adveta, your biggest learning from your mom? And
yeah, I have endless learnings, but I think, beyond, of course, like she's extremely resilient, risk-taking, so sharp. She's really taught me the importance of knowing your P&L inside out, your numbers, your metrics. All of those are fantastic lessons. But I really think the number one lesson I love is I think she lives her life to the fullest. She lives her dreams, and she doesn't let anyone or anything kind of come in the way of that. And so whether it was, me and Anchit clamoring at her saying, why do you have to work, come home when we were 5-year-olds, she continued to work. Whether it was, us, her wanting to go on treks with her friends a little later in life, and if someone was like, why don't you be at home? She didn't kind of listen. She lived her life. She lived her passions. And I think now when, you get to the age that I'm at, and, she mentioned earlier that it's only as you start growing up, you realize how much there is to learn from your parents. I've come to feel that because she lived her life so fully, that's actually the biggest inspiration that, and the biggest form of role model, that I can have, because that's really it, right? She's lived her dream. She's kind of achieved what she's achieved. In the moment, those small things might have felt, oh, why isn't she listening to her child? Why isn't she listening to her husband? But in the grand scheme of things, she's lifted all of us up with her. And so I think she's this epitome of, just really taking life by its horns and making it her own. And by doing that, you actually give everyone around you the mandate to do that for themselves as well, and really experience this one and precious life that you've got to the fullest.
Sure. Adveta, can you just recall a few lines from the poem Ithaca?
Someone asked me that again. It's a pretty complicated poem full of Greek words here and there. But, the general sense of it is sort of like, as you set out for Ithaca, which is this mythical, beautiful destination, don't worry whether that final destination will make you rich or not, but rather just try to enjoy every stop along the way and, appreciate the jewels and gems and the scents and views that you see on this journey. And so even if you reach and you're poor, you would have been rich for all the experiences that you sort of collected upon the way. And I think that's been a huge guiding poem in the Nykaa journey for Mom and even for me. I think just, entrepreneurship is such a roller coaster that if you don't enjoy every minute of it, both the highs and the lows and the twists and the turns, you can get bogged down. But I think treating it as an enjoyable journey is quite essential.
But as part of that poem, I just add a little bit, there is also this thing that, if you, your fears, if you don't allow them to come up, or, it talks about Lestrigonians and others, like they will not come in front of you unless you bring them up. So it also makes you very brave. This poem is also about making you brave that, if you keep your head high and the journey and the enjoyment of the journey motivates you, then and you don't allow the fears to come up, that itself will make the journey great. So I think it's a really great poem. People should read it, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adveta, and thank you so much, Falguni.
It's our pleasure.